Ms. Garcia, welcome to our forum. How are you?
I'm having a great day. Great to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. I have a few questions, and I want to start off taking a look at your time in the de Blasio administration. You certainly held several key positions. The mayor counted on you to fix important problems. So how will your administration differ from the de Blasio administration?
Yes, I was required to step up over and over again during multiple crises, but in my administration, we shouldn't need someone to have to step up because we'll have the people in place to get the job done from day one.
And in terms of policies, how will your city hall differ from Mayor de Blasio's?
Look, I'm about getting the job done, but really making the transformative change we need in the city to make sure there's economic opportunity for everyone and making real change in education so that that happens.
In your resignation from the sanitation department, in that letter you wrote, "At a time when protecting public health is of the essence, cutting basic sanitation services is unconscionable. But as mayor, how would you expect your commissioners to deal with tough budget cuts?"
This is where you actually have to meet with your commissioners to talk about what is going to impact New Yorkers. I could have told you that you start cutting that much money out of sanitation, you will notice the first weekend, and literally everyone did. It is working collaboratively to have the city really thrive. And particularly during a pandemic when, garbage and waste on the street equates to it being dirty, equates to health. I mean, it's actually why the Department of Sanitation exists and was originally part of the health department. And so my administration will be about collaborative work so that New Yorkers are served and served every day.
And Henry has a few questions for you now.
Talking about policing now, you're on the record as not wanting to defund the police, which we know means different things to different people, but you're a no. Why?
We can walk and chew gum. We can have reform of the police department where everyone feels safe in their neighborhoods, regardless of the color of their skin, because I know we have to still fight crime. Shootings are up. Asian hate crime is up. Anti-Semitic crime is up. These are real challenges in the city. But that does not mean I give up on ensuring that everyone, regardless of the color of their skin, is getting the respect they deserve. And that's about transforming the department from really like warriors against community to guardians of the community and measuring that. You can measure community impact and take real proactive approaches to reduce crime.
So you have this balanced approach, balanced philosophy, walk and chew gum, as you say. But it's been just over a year since George Floyd was killed by a police officer. Many took to the streets here in the city asking for more than reform, saying the attempts at reform were not enough. Talk to those folks specifically about why you're going to get the balance right.
The George Floyd and his death just put a spotlight on all of our failures and the real challenges of structural racism. I know that we have to make investments in community, which is why I put out the foster care plan, which talked about our most vulnerable youth and ensuring that they have coaches and mentors and forever families, because when you make those investments, they're 50% less likely to be involved in the criminal justice system. I know those are the investments we need, but we also at this moment have crime rising in the city. It's just a fact. And I know that I'm the one who's managed a uniform agency, can get real culture change, because there's a lot of things we need to do. Increase the age of officers, have them live in the city, make sure that we are training.
To be clear, because this is a point of contention, you would have officers live in the city of New York.
I would work with the state legislature to have that happen for those who are new recruits, yes.
Ayanna?
Thank you. I want to talk a bit about public housing. There are so many issues that NYCHA residents face. We cover them daily here at PIX11, elevators being out, raw sewage, lead paint. As mayor, where would you even begin in addressing these chronic issues?
When I was the interim chair of NYCHA, what I saw was really horrifying. And also heat being out, no gas for months at a time. There is a plan before us. Legislation was introduced this week to have the blueprint put in place, which will drive the $40 billion in need into those buildings so that residents get new elevators and get new kitchens and get new bathrooms. Because doing nothing is meaning that we're going to let those houses and those tenants be condemned.
Henry?
Manhattan's big buildings still feel pretty empty. You probably felt it walking to our studio today and out on the campaign trail. Take a look at this. By some estimates, more than 16% empty are the office buildings. We know with work from home, it's going to stay like that, at least a higher number from what it was before the pandemic. What are you going to do with all this empty space if you're elected mayor?
I am actually somewhat optimistic that we will get our office workers back. It may not be exactly the same as what it was, but we know that you are more productive when you get to interact with your peers. Zoom is not a replacement for being able to meet with people and get interactions, and that makes you more productive. So I see a future where we have to bring art and culture back, bring our restaurants back, make Midtown dynamic again. Then people want to stay here, people want to come here, people want to visit here. And that's what makes New York City so special.
So more of a focus on tourism and events than this being a business center? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, absolutely not. My feeling is that when we have a more livable New York City, when we make this someplace people want to be in, that business follows the people. They follow the talent. And we've also seen some of the growing firms in tech actually gobbling up commercial office space. So don't bet against Center City.
Ayanna?
Let's talk about roadway dining structures, those new restaurants that have popped up across the city during the pandemic. We've tallied the number, and there are currently approximately 7,000 of them. 6,881 to be exact. So is roadside dining here to stay? And if so, how do you better regulate these structures?
I love open streets and open restaurants. I think they've been a savior to all of us and such a support for small businesses that have been struggling. And when we look at it, we need to make sure that they're safe. We need to make sure that they're compliant with all of our regulations. And that's just about enforcement. But being able to turn on a dime and get these structures up and running, that is some adaptive entrepreneurs.
Are there any thoughts you have on ways in which they can be made safer throughout the city?
It's really about looking at buffers, but also slowing down traffic around them. Some of them are on very quiet streets. We need to make sure that we're not going 40 miles an hour.
Absolutely. I'm going to turn it over to Henry.
Ms. Garcia, I know you're probably a big fan of our recent surveys because they showed you ahead in the polls, but our surveys also found that 79% of New Yorkers were either somewhat or very concerned about crime on public transportation. How are you going to make New Yorkers feel safe again while riding the bus, riding the subway?
It is critical that New Yorkers feel safe riding the bus or the subway because that's our arteries. That's how we get around. That's how we go to school. It's how we get to work. You can't get Midtown thriving again or other office without it. We need officers in our subways, but we also need mental health professionals because a lot of the crime that we've seen in this spike is because people are struggling with a mental illness. We need to divert them to the facilities that will actually be able to treat them. And not just a 24-hour, here's one little bit of medication, but you haven't stabilized. We need to make sure that they are getting stable treatment so that they can thrive and that we all feel safer. But, you know, I remember the 70s and 80s. You didn't take the subway after dark. We cannot go back to that.
Ayanna's got a couple of questions about coronavirus.
Do you support a coronavirus vaccine passport for here in New York City? And if so, when should New Yorkers have to show the passport?
So I believe that as we begin to reopen, the requirement is going to come from the establishments that we go to. I know that there were sections in Barclays Center and at MSG for the playoffs. If you wanted to go, you needed to show that you had a vaccine card for certain of those areas. That helps us open up the economy. And so I am very supportive of making it so when we're gathering and when we can be safe without masks is when we're vaccinated.
So you believe it should be up to the individual venues and not a blanket New York City passport?
Well, I would love to get there, but right now I think our first priority is the venues need to make sure that they can keep us all safe.
Will you require all New York City students to get the COVID-19 vaccine as they become eligible?
I believe that all students, like all other vaccines, have to be vaccinated and inoculated going forward. Obviously, we have to make sure that the science shows that the FDA has approved them, that they are safe. But I want the children to be safe too.
And what about the teachers? Will you require them to show up in September vaccinated?
I will require them to show up in September if they've chosen not to get vaccinated. That's their decision, but they've got to be in the classrooms.
Thank you, and we'll turn it over to Henry now for our last few questions.
Yes or no, please. If Governor Cuomo runs for re-election next year, will you vote for him?
Oh, I have not made a decision that far ahead.
So you're not ruling out a vote for Governor Cuomo
I
next
am
year?
not. I am not going to make any decisions on something that is way in the future. If we knew what we knew a year ago, we would never have predicted the last 12 months.
Broadway's coming back in September. Do you have tickets? What's your first show?
Oh, I do not have tickets, but I need to get tickets. I have not had time to think about anything, but you know, I would love to go see Hamilton again.
So a musical as opposed to a play, or?
The last play that I saw, The Ferryman, plays are very intense. I think I need a little bit of
Some whimsy?
some whimsy, some music.
Ms. Garcia, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here and great to see you both in person.
Great to see you.
Great to see you too.